Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
The Daily Compliance News for May 28, 2025. The Moron Premium edition. And we begin with that story from the Financial Times. Edward Luce opining on the U.S. economy, which his headline is America's Rising Moron Premium. What is that? That's the U.S. Treasury bond, the only force that's been able to have Donald Trump rethink his idiotic tariff war. And the problem is U.S. Treasury bond prices have dropped sharply in tandem with the weakening dollar. Who's weakening that dollar? Donald Trump. What's it going to do? Hollow out investments. Because foreign investors want to be better compensated for the risk of owning U.S. debt. Why? Because there's a risk of default. So Trump has resumed his economic war on the EU, but it didn't stop with the EU because he's going after Apple. So there will be a mounting U.S. debt, and there will be a bond market which has crashed. In a very interesting article next from Africa News, Ghana has temporarily shut down its U.S. embassy after a major corruption scandal involving visa fraud and unauthorized payments was uncovered by a special audit. Foreign Affairs Minister announced the decision, describing it as a necessary step to restore integrity and accountability in Ghana's diplomatic missions abroad. This is a part of a decisive effort to restructure and overhaul the embassy's operations after the audit findings. The audit revealed that Fred Quating, a locally hired IT officer at the embassy since 2017, created an unauthorized link on the embassy's website. This link redirected visa and passport applications to his private company, where fees charged were between $30 and $60. These payments were not approved by Ghana and were deposited directly into Quating's account. So, interesting stories. Next up from Business Insider, a pretty troubling story about an individual who in an employee survey, was candid about his thoughts of the company. And the next day, he was received an email from the company's CEO who basically said, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But we'll pay you for doing so." And you see this sort of erosion of corporate trust and accountability at the top levels of management going forward. And our final story comes to us from Bloomberg, who reports that President Trump said he will pardon a former Virginia sheriff facing a 10-year prison sentence after being convicted of bribery and fraud charges. The president declared he is a wonderful person, and the fact that he accepted $75,000 in bribes in exchanging for appointing wealthy businessmen as auxiliary deputy sheriffs, well, that was just a nice way to say thank you for a job well done by the businessman who paid him that money. Once again, demonstrating that not only does the Trump administration embrace bribery and corruption, but they'll pardon you if you happen to have run afoul of any U.S. law. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.